this was the worst episode of the entire season, both in terms of writing, both in terms of story, both in terms of plot holes. Worst of all, for the longest part, it was just absolutely boring. Like, I had to stop mid episode to play a game of League of Legends so I can sip some energy, sip the energy into me, so that I can continue to watch this again. It was bad. It was absolutely bad. I will go through everything that I didn't like, and as usual, I will make a meta analysis of the whole thing, and then I'll go into the story. I do appreciate that literally everyone in Star Trek is terrified of communism, which is represented by the Borg. Like, if you look at the Borg, they do have true equality. Literally, everyone is equal. Everyone works for the common good. Everyone works for the collective. You cannot make something more equal than the Borg. They do not have ranks. They do not have differences between the individual drones. They do not have money. They are literally communists in space. And it seems it gave Picard and other people PTSD. So with that said, I do appreciate that the writers are realizing just how horrible it will be if everyone was absolutely equal. Because that's what the Borg are. Now, in terms of why the episode was bad. Now, as I mentioned before, and I will mention it again, because a lot of progressive people who use at these shows as gospel, I guess, like a vehicle so that they can transport their progressive ideology to unsuspecting people. They do not understand why people don't like it. It's not that the show has politics, okay? It might be because the show is preachy, but in this particular case, not really. The reason that people dislike it is like when you take an IP that already exists and you call it a reimagining, which is what I like to call it, a regurgitation. That's what you're doing. You cannot take an original IP and change the overall theme of that IP, which is why people were attracted to it in the first place. Like, imagine if I were to make 50 Shades of Grey the regurgitating into a horror flick, into a slasher. Do you think the women who like 50 Shades of Grey are going to watch my reimagining of it? So when you take Star Trek, which is about a bright and hopeful future, and you show me people being tortured on a slab, having their eyeballs pulled out very graphically with the optic nerve just clinging there, and the doctor is pulling the optic nerve while the guy is screaming in horror, that is not Star Trek. That may be a very good scene for Warhammer 40k or for some other IP, but not for Star Trek. Now, a lot of people that are Star Trek fans are going to be pissed off, and rightfully so, because why would you take an old IP and make a sequel to it? It's so that you attract the old fans, right? But if you're not giving the old fans what they want, then why not just make something new? Create something new so you don't piss people off. You just want the old fans, like what, to use them as a vehicle to bounce your IP into fame? Like, because I think that's what they want to do, right? They want to create like the old buzz from the old fans in order to kickstart their project, and then to shove those fans away. Go like, shoo, we don't need you anymore. Your work here is done. That's what I think these TV shows and movies that are recreations and reimaginings, while completely missing the mark, are supposed to do. They're supposed to use you as a consumer in order to create hype about their product and then kick you away. Because it's like, we don't need you anymore. We got our new enlightened consumer base. So anyway, with that said, I think there are two things that can make a good TV show. The story. So we're talking about TV shows like Lost. A lot of people tuned in because of the story. Or character design. So if you have like really strong characters, people stop caring about the story as much. I'm talking about first seasons of Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. Even if you take, for example, Mike and Jimmy from Better Call Saul, and you put them into something really boring like a car, and they get to spend an entire episode in a car, people don't care about the story because the dialogue is what's going to glue them to the seats. They're just going to be like, well, this is some really good dialogue. I'm curious what these people are going to talk about, right? And some shows, like ones that I mentioned, like Better Call Saul, they got both story and characters hands down, which is why I think it's a marvel of ingenuity when it comes to writing. But when I look at the new Star Trek, the story is boring. I generally do not care. I mean, okay, there is that mystery with, Dodge and blah, blah, blah. That might be a little bit intriguing, but overall, it's boring. It's a boring story. I remember when I was watching Stargate, and I was curious, like, what are they going to do next? When I was watching Prison Break, the episode was over, and I was like, oh, gosh darn it, I need to wait 6 more days until I get to see what happens. Those were episodes and shows with good story. This one isn't. And the characters are lame. The characters are boring. None of the characters managed to appeal to me. And I'm looking at, like, who am I supposed to care about? Picard, right? He's the name of the main character, and the show is named after him. He is now an old man. He doesn't give those inspiring speeches that rally people around him. Like, can you name me a speech that Picard has given in these last episodes? Most of the time he is sidelined so that other characters, mostly female characters, get to shine. And just there's nothing about him that I find interesting. It's not the Picard from the Next Generation that imposed a certain level of gravitas and people respected him when he was on the ship. Now he is being degraded to comedy relief. It's like, oh, don't I look sinister? Oh, when the Borg entered her. The Borg entered you. Shut the fuck up. I genuinely do not like the new Picard as a character. Like, it's ridiculous that the show might actually be better without him. The science lady that's into science. The show writers are pushing the trope that scientists are very socially awkward people. And some of them are, but if you're at the top of your field, if you manage to climb the ladder to the point where you're at the top of your field, you're going to be an incredibly social person. Even if when you started university you weren't, when you have to give speeches in front of auditoriums, when you have to give Q&As, when you have to make a thesis and then defend your thesis from criticism, when you have to do all these things, you either learn to be a very social person so that you reach the top, or you don't, and then you don't reach the top. I have been in the science world. I have seen people at the top. I have spoken with doctors that won the Nobel Prize at certain conferences. They are incredibly social people. But this is like a self-insert that you get to see in a lot of TV shows where the person writing it wishes they were a scientist and they're socially awkward. So this is how, they self-insert into this stupid-ass character that is not relatable. Nothing she does is relatable. Like, even the romance between her and the main character, the pilot, sorry, not the main character, the pilot, is so forced. It's cringy at best. And then we go to the pilot. The pilot himself is boring because he's, instead of like using the opportunity to make this really arrogant asshole but with a golden heart, like someone that's going to be very rude in a conversation, very dismissive, very arrogant, but when push comes to shove, he's the guy that's going to turn the ship around just to save that one individual. That would have been an interesting character. And you can tell that, like, why would the holograms have his face if he's not arrogant? And you could do that, but instead, no, you don't get to see that. Why? Because the writers of the show wants to push the politics of strong women. And they do not know women that are actually strong in real life, so they can have like a North Star, a compass that would guide them to how to create a strong woman. If you look at the Orville does strong women really well. And because they have flaws, they also are very emotional, and they're not strong because they can just kick ass and beat guys. They're strong intellectual, they're very charismatic, they know how to use a social situation to their advantage. None of the women here in Star Trek can do that. And when you look at the universe, it is filled and dominated by women. The admiral that Picard went to for looking for help was a woman. And the way we get to see that she is strong is by having her curse and swear. Like, she doesn't actually do something that is powerful. She's just like, in a position of authority and is talking to Picard in a very disrespectful manner. The woman that is another admiral, she's the Romulan chick, And again, like, she's just an asshole. Like, she just behaves like a twat, but doesn't actually show that she has social power, and she uses physical strength to bully her brother. Like, that is so weird. That is so bizarre. And then you get to see the other woman that the black lady called upon today to blackmail her in order to go to the Borg cube. It's like every single person in a position of power is a woman. Now, okay, fine, but they're not acting like women. They're acting like assholes. Again, go to the Orville to see what a strong woman is like. Look at Janeway from The Next Generation, Samantha Carter from Stargate. Like, these are strong women that you can kind of think in real life and go like, yeah, I know a couple of ladies that are like them. And they're not assholes. They don't have to be assholes in order to project power. They don't have to beat men in order to show that they're strong. They are strong by using other characteristics that the writers are completely alien from, because they probably do not know strong women in their real life. But anyway, right, so that's something. And by the way, all of this romance with Daj's sister, it would have been so much better if Daj's sister was actually a guy and the Romulan spy would have been a hot chick. I think it would have made better chemistry, because like their relationship was just utterly cringe. It's utterly cringe. And seeing the Romulan spy being bullied by his sister, like schoolyard bullying, like she literally just takes the cube and goes like, yeah, you can't reach it, yeah. It's like, what on earth are you trying to do? I can't relate to these characters. No one I know in my real life, and goddammit, I know a lot of people, but no one behaves like this. The moment you get your first pube on your vagina or on your testicle, you stop behaving like this. This is like some teenage schoolyard thing that you're doing. And, maybe I can see why corporations have ball pits, because this is how these writers behave when they're adults. It's so foreign to me. But anyway, right, so let's talk about the story and the massive plot holes that were permeating this. So, in the beginning of the story, I was expecting to see the science lady try to cover herself up, to cover her tracks, because she killed the guy last episode. So I was expecting that she would like delete the medical hologram, or that she would, write something in the computer to make it look like an accident, something. No, instead she debriefs everyone else, telling them how the guy died. And I'm like, why is everyone listening to her and not the emergency medical hologram? Like, isn't he the doctor? Or is this Star Trek, and if you're the science lady, you know all the sciences? Like, you know how to operate a transporter, you know how to do medicine, you know how to program cyborgs or synthetics or whatever they call them now. She seems to be good at all of the sciences, all of it. If it's scientific, she knows how to do it. It's like, okay, so people do not need the emergency medical hologram, because apparently in the far future we do not have specializations anymore. It's not everyone is specialized on their field. No, if you're into science, you're into everything. Okay, perfect, I understand. Great, right. So apparently no one actually bothered activating the EMH. They just take their word for it. There's no cameras, there's no footage there, nothing. It's like, okay, she says the guy died, everyone believes her, perfect. Then they arrive on the Borg cube. And on their way to the Borg cube, this was like the most dumbest thing that I have ever seen. They literally blackmailed the Federation to give diplomatic rights to Picard. Now, Picard at this point is, based on the lore, okay, like what I've seen so far in this show, he is completely disgraced. He is like, I don't know, the same way progressive consider Churchill in Great Britain. Like he was a great man, he did great things, but apparently he's a racist, so therefore no one has respect for him. Okay, and he calls on the Federation and says, I need diplomatic status. And the Federation goes like, no, we're not going to give it to you. And it's like, oh, no, you don't see, we're on our way, we're going to arrive in 2 hours, you need to give me diplomatic thing, or else there's going to be a war between the Federation and the Romulans for invading their space without any good reason. And I'm thinking like, okay, if you're going to blackmail us like that, then we're going to just call the Romulans and tell them that a rogue agent is doing this. We're going to show him this recording, and you have our permission to detain him, and we're going to, exchange him in the future. Like, just detain him, arrest warrant, European arrest warrant, and we're going to get Picard under lock and key because what he's doing is a crime. So he is blackmailing. He is potentially starting a war. He is violating the Romulan border. But apparently not. Apparently, strong woman manages to convince the admiral that no, you're going to get diplomatic position just by strong arming the Federation. I mean, clearly this doesn't create a precedent where other people can just strong arm the Federation out there. I mean, it's not a principle anymore. It's Picard for the law. It's Picard. You all like Picard. Yeah, Picard is very likable. Yes, she's like, what? The Picard of old would have never done something like this. Back in Starfleet, ranks matter. And going against the rules was a problem. But I guess now it's written by anarchists. It's like, oh, fuck the rules. Oh, fuck the system. Fuck the man. Fuck. He goes on the Borg cube, and apparently people recognize him now because once you're a Borg, you remember all of the people in the collective. The collective is like tens of trillions of people. I don't think the human brain is capable of such information. And even then, it's like, well, Picard was somewhat important. He was the cutest of Borg, and everyone remembers him. But they don't say that. They actually state that once in the collective and you're disconnected, you remember everybody. And that's like, oh my god, do you not understand that this is not how the human mind would work? Everyone would be just driven insane with just so much clusters upon clusters of information. I mean, if you have your mental implants that the Borg gives you, then yes, but if they remove those, you'd stop to function. And I see that 7 of 9 functions pretty well. Picard functions pretty well. The guy that he spoke with, which is also from TNG, functions pretty well. So, it's really weird. Why would you have this story where you remember literally every single face in the collective once you've been there? What else do they remember? Can you understand? Seriously, if they remember everything that they had since the collective, then they would be the most brilliant minds in the universe because they would know every single bit of scientific lore there is to know while within the Borg. They would know everything about every other culture they encounter. They would know everything about how to build stuff. Why are you even exploring the cube at this point? Just disconnect random people and ask them how to build shit. It's because, I thought that, okay, some bits and pieces and remnants of technology remains. They are the specialists that they would remember every little detail. But apparently, no, they do. So, okay. He goes on to the Borg cube, and meanwhile, this really weird relationship between Daj's sister and the Romulan spy is going on. And she realizes that something is amiss because all the items that she has are, I believe it was 3 years and 9 months or something. Literally everything she had. So she realizes that someone must have altered her memories, and she agrees to this really cringy LGBT ritual where they basically put her under a hypnosis, and she goes back into her past and gives the Romulans the information of her home planet based on the fact that there was a storm above her and 2 red moons. So they use that information to find out her planet. Are you kidding me? What if there were 6 moons, but it was cloudy outside and you only get to see 2 of them? What if the other moons were positioned behind the planet, so when she looked outside, she only got to see 2? And how many planets would that, okay, so she saw an electrical storm, and because of that, there is a planet with an electrical field? What if it was just a passing storm? There used to be a time when they actually hired scientists on the crew that would write these things. Not anymore. If you don't know, the short Trek stories have a guy in the spaceship seeing a falling star in space. The reason we see falling stars is because of meteorites that go into the atmosphere and combust and catch fire. In space, there is no atmosphere, so you wouldn't see a falling star. But again, this is the knowledge and the level of the writing team for these TV shows. Why hire an actual person? Why talk to an actual scientist when you know better? You know better. And then it's the worst thing ever. Picard basically managed to rescue her, and apparently she's so strong that she can literally just pull off the ground and make a hole so she can just go in another room without any problem. Like, she is so strong, she can just bend titanium. I think that was actually mentioned in the first episode, and it's like, holy shit, like, that's a little bit OP. And then Picard manages to use the Borg Queen's chamber. It's like, does every cube now have a Borg Queen chamber? Apparently they do. Okay, fine. So he uses the Borg Queen chamber in order to teleport on another planet, and the elvish guy wants to stay behind in order to fight off the people that are chasing him. It's like, why not just teleport them all onto your ship and run away? I mean, wasn't that the way you got in? You teleported the elf and you teleported Picard? I mean, huh? And it's like, well, maybe they raised their shields, so teleportation doesn't work. Okay, but if they raise their shields, how can he use the Borg Queen thingy to teleport outside? Does it need to make sense? Why did the elfish guy stay behind? Like, no one was right there in order to find them. What if there's danger on the planet that he goes to? Why not just go with them? And even then, if you go with them and they're going to use the same teleportation ability, then there's not going to be a lot of them coming at the same time. It's like a choke point. How many people can you teleport? Like 5, 10 at once? Like, it's a lot easier to fight them off 10 at a time than to fight them off like 30 or 40 at a time. So I didn't like this episode. Really, really didn't. Horrible episode. Absolutely atrocious. Not looking forward for the next. Like, if it was just me, I would stop watching here. But I do need to make these reviews, and unfortunately, other people don't like the show either. And I'm getting less and less views. People just don't watch it anymore. So we'll see. If it drops below 1,000, I'm not going to make these reviews anymore. And honestly, like, I started being disappointed by it, that I started liking it, and now I'm really disappointed by it again. Like, I started liking it, just switching off that it's Star Trek. I was like, look. And then I noticed, okay, every single woman is empowered. And it's not, when we say empowered, we don't actually mean like a strong woman that people can relate to. We notice the social justice activist version of strong woman. And it's not a relatable character, all right? There is nothing that I relate when I see that Romulan chick sister. It's just like a really schoolyard bully level of toxic masculinity. And then you also have like the drunken black chick. Why would I want to watch a show about a drunken, angsty black chick? Like, what exactly would make, me... Anyway, right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.